If you're new to this channel, I bought a little cabin in the Swedish woods this summer. It was a cheap property and it was falling apart just a little bit. When I started demolishing, my cabin quickly went from looking pretty cute to this. So you can follow along and see exactly what happened for me to get to this point. I know that I'm running a little bit behind on these videos. Obviously I started renovating during the summer, but I never had time to actually edit these videos. So I will be catching up to the now soon enough, and then you'll be able to follow the renovations in real time. Now, during the summer I had a little bit of help, which was amazing. My parents actually drove over to start help with the most pressing renovation needs. I think they expected to be doing a little bit of painting, but everything ended up being a lot more extensive than that. Now, for those wondering, my parents have no experience in construction. I really spent a lot of time trying to figure out what my priorities would be, and I decided that with my parents I would focus on the jobs that either had to be done before the winter or jobs that I physically couldn't do on my own, something that I really just needed a second pair of hands with. So in the end, we decided to focus on the gutters, the water pipes that needed to be buried before winter, and most importantly of all, the back wall, which had suffered a lot of damage from a roof leak. The demolishing job started with the back room, which was part of an extension done in the 50s. My plan was to first of all take out an internal wall so I can turn that into one larger kitchen. When I started to take away the ceiling and the walls, everything was rotting, so I had to replace the entire window and the surrounding woods that was also rotting away. With that, I also exposed the back wall. I took off a lot of cardboard-like material, and I really saw the damage that had been done by the roof leak. Basically what happened is that someone put in a new metal roof over the back extension, but the roof sheets weren't long enough, and because of that, water had been seeping in and caused a lot of damage over the years. Obviously, I had seen this, I knew that there was damage, but exposing these walls, exposing the internal walls, really showed that the damage was a lot more extensive than I thought it was. We replaced everything that we could, all of the beams and the walls, and I treated the remaining wood against rot. Luckily, because I had taken out the internal wall, I was able to reuse that wood to remake the exterior wall in the same way that it had been built originally. I have to say, when I finally started to build the exterior wall, it was a revelation. Demolishing had taken weeks and weeks, and building something new was so much faster, and seeing the results was just amazing. It felt so good to finally make something. The ceiling joists had also been rotting away, and I cut those off and sisted them and bolted them together securely. At this time I had to make a really difficult decision. Basically, we realized that the roof of this extension, or at least part of it, which had the leak, needed to be replaced, but with everything taking very long and us working on the project and just realizing our strengths and weaknesses, we realized that that job was well out of our comfort zone. It was also going to take much too long to actually finish the project within the time that we had, so I had to make the really difficult decision to not do it. So basically I replaced everything that was rotting around it, but the roof itself, the underside, is going to have to be done another year. Luckily, my dad was comfortable enough to get up on a ladder and go quite high in the air, and he did add a layer of roof sheets underneath the ones that were there, so basically the leak is stopped, and it's just the damage to the underside of that roof that will need to be tackled still. After finishing the wall, I got to make my first window. That was very exciting because, like I said, I was finally making things. So I didn't quite have the right tools, and I couldn't quite find the timber in the sizes that I had measured. So it turned into a little bit of a improvisation. Because I planned to build a toilet where that rotting window had been, I added a smaller window in. And actually, my plan is to not add glass but have shutters instead and see if that works out. Obviously, if it doesn't, I can always make a conventional window with glass in it. I used the same timber that I used to make the ceiling joists, and it does need a little bit more work to make it airtight. I also haven't yet worked on the shutters themselves because that's not quite a priority, while my parents are there. It was great to finally finish this wall by putting up the exterior panels. My mum was painting everything and I would put everything up, which it was so nice to see the progress and really finish something that we started weeks and weeks ago. Now, I have to say that everything that we did took so long and was so much more difficult than we imagined it to be. Even simple things like buying wood was really stressful. I would design things and measure everything and bring my sketches to the shop with me, and then I would struggle to find wood in the sizes that I needed. So while we were there, often in like the heat of day, I would have to redesign everything in my head, which is one of the reasons why the windows ended up turning out different from what they needed to be. So I had to think of something else while my parents were behind me just waiting, and then we would finally select the wood, and we needed to cut the woods at the shop before bringing it home and figuring out where to cut it. It was a slow process and stressful for all of us. On the other side of the extension, I replaced a door for a window. Now, I didn't take that much footage of this because at this point we were just so busy trying to finish projects. I did get a couple of fun surprises actually. The insulation that was used, I think I found horsehair. On the other side of the house, I'd also found a lot of moss, which is really nice to see. For this window, we actually used the old glass from the window that had been rotting. The glass and the surroundings were still in a good enough state, surprisingly enough, to use, so we repainted that and put those in. So the new window looks very much like the original ones. So during all this time of heavy interior renovations, my mum had started to work on this tiny vegetable garden outside. The previous owner had gifted me a couple of vegetable plants, and my mum had been busy digging a little garden for me, which was so cute. The yield from them wasn't amazing, but it was really nice to start something like that. Shortly after she finished though, we decided to try digging the trench for the water pipes ourselves. Now, this is a big project because it's between 20 and 25 meters from the house to the water pump, and these water pipes need to be buried for winter. Now, in my last video, I mentioned that I had received a quote for 5,000 crowns to do this with a machine, but having spent all my money on buying this house, that's a lot of money. So we decided to try it ourselves, and my poor mum ended up digging the entire trench herself. And trust me, this is not an easy job because this ground is filled with granite, and it was just insane, the rocks that we had to dig out or dig around. It was an immense job, and I'm so grateful that she did it, and I will never ever ask her to do anything like that ever again. To be honest, I will never ask my parents to ever do any job on my house ever again. They are done for good. Now I'm actually going to share more about the trench and the winterizing the whole water pipes and insulating the water pump house in a separate video, which will be coming up because I feel like that's a separate little project which I would like to just focus on in the one video without confusing anybody. So these were the summer months. We took down 2 walls, we built a new wall, replaced ceiling joists, made 2 windows, painted, dug a trench, and lots of little jobs beside this. My dad also put gutters all around the house. In the few days before my parents left, I actually also built a kitchen. Well, you'll hear about this more. I had to put in the countertop so that we could reconnect the water pipes. Not all the plumbing connections fitted, and we had to make some last minute crazy rides into town, borrow tools from a random shop in town. Obviously there are many jobs more left to do, and I still have quite a bit to finish before winter actually arrives. I will be sharing all my other adventures coming up. Thanks for watching.